That's the Ministry of Education. Okay, and then we have the Ministry of Finance, and then we have the Ministry of Communication Data. We have the UNDP Development Program, UN Development Program, and then we have Miyoko, and then internal audit.
Okay.
These are a few of it.
I'm just out of curiosity. You mentioned Ministry of Finance. How much is the Ministry of Finance owing you?
Currently, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs is owing it to the tune of 421,038 Ghana cedis.
And 2 pesos. Okay, so this is a nationwide exercise, if I'm correct.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Mr. Labi, I'm grateful for your time here on Top Story. That's Mr. Labi Stevens. He's the leader of the ECG task force that has been going around disconnecting some major institutions. And you hear him there. And so if you're using possibly the local terminal for internal travel, the previous main terminal, the Kotoka International Airport, that will be used for international local flights. As you've just heard, the ECG, they've disconnected that particular part of the Kotoka International Airport. They don't expect it to have light. It appears that if they do, that may be possibly illegal connection, as they've been disconnected already. You've just heard him talk about the finance ministry is in line to be disconnected as well, because they owe them just shy of 500,000 cedis that they will be pursuing. This, of course, is a story you're watching pretty closely, as they've already today disconnected the Accra Sports Stadium and also the La Palma Royal Beach. This has become an issue in Parliament today. The minority side have been concerned, particularly about the failure of the Ghana Airports Company, Kotoka International Airport, to pay up what they owe the ECG. We've been hearing from the ranking member on the Transport Committee in Parliament, Mr. Kwame Agboja, who has been talking about what this says about the management of the airports company, which has recently become pretty topical. You know that the former boss of the airports company was recently removed and kicked out following some very controversial circumstances. The ranking member, Mr. Agboja, accused the management of misplaced priority, arguing that the money is used for the purchase of Christmas trees, which became very controversial on the back of the Christmas. Part of it should have been channeled into settling the ECG bill.
Electricity company, as we all know, is struggling because it's not government alone that is producing power. Other people borrow money, IPPs produce power. So we need to pay them to be able to continue fueling that is in our interest. Ghana Airport Company has come up in the news recently for various reasons. And I expect that if they consume power, they should be able to pay. If they are not able to pay, and to the extent that power has been taken off from their, at least the administrative building, I want to just thank Ghana Airport Company for at least the electricity company for not shutting down the whole thing, because that would have been a global problem if the whole airport is yeah, exactly. Right. So at least I commend them for being humane in the way they did it. But I expect Ghana Airport Company to be more diligent in the way they manage things. If you do not have enough money to pay electricity bill, what the hell were we seeing Christmas trees costing about 100,000 cedis at the terminal building? It's completely unnecessary.
It's a misplaced of priority.
Totally a misplaced priority. It just tells you that both management and board ought to do better in terms of prioritizing their expenditure in these times of hardship. And I'm so appalled and angry about this. You need to pay Ghana Electricity Company, even if you can't pay all of it. Every penny you find that can be disbursed of properly, go into things that we say, even if you can't pay off the 40 million, at least 100,000 can do something. At least go and give that 100,000. What would there have been a slowing of business at the airport if there was no Christmas tree? And then people were justifying that, the board chairman, everybody was justifying that they've only been doing. In fact, if you've been buying Christmas tree every Christmas since independence, this last year's Christmas should have told you that we are in a different Christmas, so you need to prioritize what you pay for. And I'm so appalled, and I think my committee, together with the chairman, we're going to see how we can call the Ghana Airport Company. Maybe we need to just combine all of it to the circumstances surrounding the purchase of the Christmas tree, why they couldn't pay their bill until the power has been cut off, so that perhaps there's a much more endemic miscarriage of management going on there that we don't know, that we can look into it and see.
How soon will this be?
We just came to the house this morning, as you are. I haven't seen my chairman yet. I have to give him the respect and talk to him. Then, based on that, we would also go ahead and invite them. You know, there's the same thing that happened with McDan, which is still in abeyance.
Well, as you have been hearing, the aggressive revenue mobilization drive comes as workers of the ECG warned that the company is facing bankruptcy. At a press conference today, they demanded the immediate removal of their MD. My colleague Ojo Brace was there for us and joins me in the studio with more on this part of this unfolding story with the ECG. Kojo, so they stress the impact of the alleged impending bankruptcy and mismanagement of ECG on consumers. Specifically, what are they referring to?
So they say that, for example, today, if you, Evans, go to them and ask for meters, they will not be able to serve you because they lack meters, because of the incompetency of the MD. They stated that some people have requested for meters for the past 6 months and they have not been able to serve them. They again also allege that they lack posts. So today, if you have built your house and you're asking for them to extend service to you, your point, they can't do it because they don't have these posts, and they don't have cables for maintenance and for extension as well. So it looks like today, if you have moved to a new apartment and you want power, they can't do it unless you do a bad connection or a connection on your own.
What about how is this affecting ECG itself?
And this is quite interesting because they say that something as common as stationery is something they cannot afford there because they don't have the funds to do that. Again, they've said that there are delays in the payment of deductions, to their mutual fund and what have you. Their second tier and all of that are not going on, and these are all because of the the MD. They also say that as part of the impact on the company itself, the leadership style that the man has demonstrated is a one-man thing. So I am the boss here, and nobody says anything. Again, there are favoritism in appointment, and that has killed the spirit of competence and hard work in the office.
And I must indicate that these allegations, we've tried to check with the MD himself, who hasn't been available for comment. However, there is a key point in the ECG criteria that the PULC always keeps an eye on in granting them tariff increases or review, which is the system losses. And we're beginning to get a picture of this from the workers today.
Yeah. They say that his leadership has brought about some losses in technical and financial operations of the company, and it is gradually sinking the company. Now, for the critical area you mentioned, that is about power losses, system losses. They say that as of December, the aggregate system loss stood at 30%.
Okay.
And they say that that's something that we cannot take as a company and a country.
And if you look historically, 30%, if that's the number, will be pretty unprecedented in terms of the distribution losses there. But what about the board in all this? Where does the board fit into all this, the board of ECG?
They accuse the board of exploitation, that some of them are exploiting the opportunity of the man's incompetence to their own advantage.
Mr. Kwame Agyemang-Budu should not be given any contract extension and forwarded same to the board of directors for their attention and necessary action. Pitifully, however, nothing significant has come out from the board after receiving the said resolution. This apparent silence from the board is reinforcing the strong perception within the company that some of the board members are taking undue advantage of the managerial weak capacity of Mr. Kwame Agyemang-Budu to further their personal interests at the expense of the company. some staff are of the opinion that the board chairman is virtually operating like an executive chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the meeting unanimously reiterated the need for the appointing authority to treat the aforementioned concerns with the needed urgency and caution. The staff of the company, some of whom have worked for over 20 and 30 years, are surprised by the fast pace the company is slipping into bankruptcy and total destruction, especially under the tenure of Mr. Kwame Agyeman-Budu.
And you've just been listening there to Michael Nyantichi. Michael Nyantichi is the General Secretary of the of POO, the Public Utilities Workers Union. Also joining me, and he joins us on the telephone line right now. Also joining me is the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament, that is Mr. John Jonapo. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Mr. Nyantichi, so the MD was appointed by the executive, correct? I mean, the executive president. Have you sent a direct petition to the president, drawing his attention to these?
Yeah, good evening, and good evening to your cherished listeners. In response to your question, we haven't sent a direct petition to the president. We believe in the corporate governance system, ECG as a company limited by shares fully owned by the state. We made a specific resolution which was addressed to the board of directors. And as indicated in our press statement, for a while now, we haven't gotten any positive response from the board.
You raise a very scary alarm that ECG is slipping into bankruptcy. Clarify for me precisely why you say that. I mean, what is the exact picture that makes you say that it's slipping into bankruptcy?
You see, ECG is a going concern and a strategic asset for the nation, which is supposed to provide some critical service to this country and to the citizens. And if the operations of the company are being impacted in such a manner that some of the key materials that are required for its day-to-day operations are not available, then it will not take long for anybody to realize that the purpose for which the company is supposed to be there will be difficult to be accomplished. So it is based on this, the acute shortage of meters, even though we recognize that over the years meters have been a challenge, but the current situation is quite alarming. Then the serious part of issues like poles, electrical cables, and the basic items of even running an office is what is becoming very alarming. And those are the issues that we think that if something is not done, the company could be heading downhill. We believe that, yes, as a state entity, even though the appointing authority is the government and is the sole responsibility, we as workers are not in any way challenging the appointing authority, or we are not precipitating government because workers are dictating. But we as staff within the company see things which may not always be presented through various reports. And that is why we think the appointing authority needs to get the other side of issues relating to the performance and efficiency of the company.
But Mr. Nyantichi, to be fair, I mean, talking about bankruptcy and the challenges, ECG has always been a company heavily in debt. There was a time you were so in debt. I mean, you were owed so much to the tune of 2.6 billion by state enterprises. Part of it was cleared. 500 million was left. System losses has always been an issue. Meters always run out sometimes. Even sometimes meters that have been bought are bent in warehouses. So when it comes to mismanagement of ECG, alleged mismanagement, and ECG being in debt, it's not a new thing. Is it fair to lay it all at the doorstep of one man?
No, but I think if you listen to our statement carefully, we are talking about the state at which these things are getting so exacerbated. And that is the point where we think that if a managing director is brought to help resolve problems, and rather the problems are getting worsened over years, then we think that when such a person has attained the compulsory retirement age, and we hear of some lobbyists going on, then it will be in the interest of the company and the nation at large that no, some new direction has to be given for the company to be able to address the challenges that have been there, which is increasingly becoming more alarming.
Mr. Nyanchi, stay with me. Let me bring in the ranking on the Mines Energy Committee in Power. Mr. Junapo, I mean, you have some supervisory oversight on ECG and the energy authorities. You're listening to the workers. I wonder what your reaction is.
First of all, I think you and Mr. Nyantechi, you've done justice to almost all the issues, except to say that workers are an integral part of the organization. We monitor what is happening there, and I can tell you that the level of apathy, the level of despondency has gotten to a level where something ought to be done. Evans, I do recall, as Deputy Minister, there was a similar one. And during Jamina's time, even when they were agitating, Jamina left the company with a profit of over 500 million in 2016. In the 2020 annual report of ECG, they made a cumulative loss of over 5 billion. I have the records here. 2020, over 5 billion. 2021, it's estimated at around 8 billion. And so the company is going down. Today, if you want meters, the PUH has even approved an amount of 1,300. You no longer can get meters for free. If you want the pole, just an extension, you ought to pay 4,000. Even with that, when you have the money, you cannot pay. System losses have moved from 23 to 26% in 2020, and today the workers are telling us that about 30% of commercial and technical losses. What it means is that when they buy power and sell that power, 30% or more ab initio cannot be accounted for. Any company that cannot recoup or collect 30% of its sales or revenue expectation is dead. And that is what is happening to ECG. What the workers are saying is simple. The man has reached his retirement age. Let him retire peacefully. And let us get a competent person to manage ECG. I always listen to him, and his credential is that he was the MPP organizer in USA. I've read his entire CV. And when he was appointed, I issued a statement. I'll send you a copy, cautioning government that this appointment would not help ECG. Because when you mix so much politics, yes, somebody can be politically aligned, no doubt. But when the person is a core politician, and recently even I'm told he issued a statement that the Deputy Minister of Finance and him are having issues about party activities at Offenso. ECG is over 20 billion cedis. So you need a person who is committed, dedicated, and not involved in our everyday politics to pay attention to ECG. But the crust of it is that what is his record? That's all. He was appointed, I believe, with some set targets. Has he met those targets? Has the company improved? Has their financial position improved? Are the workers satisfied? Is there worker motivation? Are we seeing improvement in ECG? If we are seeing all this improvement, then you may be thinking of extending his contract or something of that sort.
If all these are true, what can your committee do about it?
The only thing we can do, and we are meeting them, I think, next month, is to raise issues, bring it to the floor. But for Parliament to descend to the arena of appointments and determining who appoints and who does not, it becomes a problem. Even the executive, in strict corporate governance, I'm of the view that the board should be empowered to do that. But of course, given our political system. But what Parliament can do is the advocacy that we are doing, or call the minister and put questions and ask the minister questions. I don't think the Parliament would descend from Parliament through the ministry, through government, through the board, and get to the management level and begin to do issues. Look, ECG is on its knees. If nothing is done, ECG will collapse. They themselves, based on the report available to us, underscore that the obsolete equipment and the way it is getting, one day this country will wake up to a very, very serious issue as far as the electricity sector is concerned.
Mr. Nyantakyi, very quickly, I noticed that ECG, you've not had a tariff review since 2019. Is that part of the problem?
Yes, we cannot run away from the fact that that is very contributory. But in the midst of such challenges, we expect some level of financial acumen to be able to manage and help shore up the challenges. Because the PURC, which has to look at tariff reviews, most often has been a bit reluctant over a number of years in giving major reviews, and coupled with the depreciation of the cedi and the foreign exchange losses, all these are issues impacting against the progress of the company, and that is where you need some high level of financial and technical expertise to be able to manage the company in the midst of these huge challenges.
Mr. Nyantakyi, thank you very much. John Junapo, thank you very much. We were tempted to reach out to the managing director of the ECG. He's not been reachable since the press conference today and the issues that we addressed to the board. News Night in a minute.